All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into Fantasy Alarm live stream. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me today, we got James Grande, Craig Mish, taking a little day to himself here. What's going on now for Mish is that he's been dealing with the Florida Marlins, or Miami Marlins, whatever you want to call them at this point, doing all sorts of trade news. Like we just found out that Brad Ziegler is actually on the move. We don't know where yet, but Craig is doing that. So Grande, you and I, baby, you and I get to sit and chat and kind of figure all of this stuff out and start working our way through all the trade deadline stuff here. How you feeling today?
I'm good. I'm excited to be back just after football, and happy to jump into some baseball talk.
I'm definitely ready to jump into some baseball talk here. All right, now what we're dealing with here, a lot of uncertainty. Everybody is flipping out because let's face it, we sat there, we saw a bunch of deals already take place, and you and I'll go over that. We saw some stuff happen yesterday. Roberto Osuna, he swaps places with Ken Giles. Houston and Toronto change places there. We've seen Moustakas dealt. We've seen Eduardo Escobar dealt. Last night, Ian Kinsler, Keone Keela, and then the bomb drops on everybody that now all of a sudden the Nationals are shopping Bryce Harper. I mean, it was kind of interesting. Jim and I were talking about this. Jim Bowden and I have this conversation on Sirius XM, and he basically said that if the Marlins were to sweep the Nationals this past weekend, then the Nationals would probably start looking to be sellers, like just really shake shit up and go from there. It didn't happen. They split 2 games apiece. Then the rumors started to persist about Bryce Harper, Mike Rizzo shutting it down. Give me your thoughts here. What do you think? Is Washington going to end up, are they going to try and be sellers? Are they going to try and be buyers? We keep hearing JT Realmuto is linked to them.
They're in a weird spot right now. I think they should be sellers because, we saw just like the Orioles with Machado. You need to get something back, and it doesn't really seem like Bryce is going to stay. I'm pretty certain he's not, but I think they should sell. They have some really, really good pieces that they can get a lot of trade value. Like just like excluding Bryce Harper, guys like Matt Adams, who can now, multi-position eligible, who slimmed down and he hits for a ton of power now and average as well. The Nats are, they're in a weird spot. There's better teams in their division. The Phillies who are clearly buyers. The Braves bought last night, getting Adam Duvall. Like they're not going to catch those teams. So I think they need to get something for who they have, and whether it's Bryce Harper or not, they need to sell regardless. But obviously you need to get massive return on Harper, and I don't know by 4:00 if they can swing that.
Right. Now, we've also got the non-waiver or the waiver trade deadline, which comes up in August 31st. There are certain teams who they're not going to be able to handle the kind of contract demands that Harper's going to have, whether it's just to pay off the end of this year or whatnot. So it's questionable as to whether or not he's going to get moved. I think we're going to have to be watching the Nats real closely here and kind of figure some stuff out. Let's recap some of the stuff that we've had right now. Let's talk about the fantasy ramifications of what we've seen. So we'll take a couple of steps back since we didn't do this live stream until we did it Friday morning, but we didn't really talk about Moustakas. We didn't talk about Eduardo Escobar or Cole Hamels. Those were the 3 big moves that took place towards the very tail end of last week. So let's hit all of those. Give me your thoughts as far as each one of these guys and whether or not you think fantasy owners should really be paying attention too much to them. Because personally, I don't know, man. Moustakas, yes, I'm fine with that. I think that it's a great spot for him in Milwaukee. It's a more full lineup for him. Better lineup protection. Should have better RBI opportunities here. But I look at the Escobar deal, and I worry about whether or not Jake Lamb's going to come back from the DL, and then where does he play? Is Nick Ahmed going to the bench? Is Ketel Marte going to the bench? Is Jake Lamb's injury more serious than we thought, and he's not coming back? For the same token there, Cole Hamels, let's face it, the dudes look terrible. He's been awful this year. He's had a couple of decent flashes. I mean, does going to the back to the NL, does that really cinch it up for him? Is that we're going to see that uptick that we usually see from pitchers going from the AL to the NL?
So I'm with you in agreement on all three. Like Moustakas, I think, I mean, he can hit anywhere, and adding a power bat such as himself is, chures up a lineup in the middle of a contention race, and obviously that's great. From a fantasy standpoint, I think he gets a little park upgrade too, which is nice going from Kansas City to Milwaukee. So we should see more power potentially from Moustakas, playing half of his home games in Milwaukee. I think Escobar takes a big hit, but I think in like deeper formatted leagues, he'll be fine. I mean, Ahmed hits lefties really well, and Escobar hits righties really well. So I think we'll probably see a platoon. I mean, Escobar has like an 850 OPS on the year, so I don't think you can just play him 2 games a week. And they're gonna see more right-handers primarily, than left-handers going forward. So I think it's more of a platoon. You could probably use Escobar in like 15-team leagues now, but nothing more than that. And I'm with you. Hamels is a bum at this point in his career. And like,
What are you, my grandpa?
Yeah.
Hamels, he's a bum. He's a bum. That's my grandpa. Let me show you. There you go. Ready? That guy's a bum. He's a bum. He's a bum too.
I mean, he's an obvious upgrade over Tyler Chatwood, because Tyler Chatwood can't throw a strike to save his life. But from a fantasy perspective, I don't know if Cole Hamels is worth, like you said it, is it worth it going from the NL just because he gets one batter less, potentially? I mean, I don't see it. Sure, like if you're absolutely desperate for, an SP5, sure, but I'm out on Hamels. He's, like you said, there's been a couple games this year. He's older. We don't need him in our lives, honestly.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, man, I don't think going to Chicago really isn't that great. You're still dealing with the wind blowing out at Wrigley. It does tend to be more of a hitter's park than it does really a pitcher's park there. And then if you look at the teams that that they face going the rest of the way, you still got a lot of games against. I understand that Pittsburgh. Well, maybe they're sellers here at this point, but Pittsburgh still plays the Cubs tough. The Cardinals are still vying for a playoff spot there. Milwaukee is doing that as well. So I don't really see. I mean, it's not a weak division here. This isn't like J Happ going to the Yankees, where he's dominated the Rays, the Orioles, and the Red Sox over not just this year, but in years past as well. So it's not that situation here with Cole Hamels. So yeah, when I look at him from a fantasy perspective, I'm kind of lukewarm on it, man. I really am. I'm not, I mean, maybe I'm just not a big Hamels fan anymore. I mean, I just think that it's, kind of washed out really for me. And while, yeah, maybe if you're in an NL only league, he's the must grab. But in a mixed league, I don't really know, man, especially if you're dealing with issues with your whip and your ERA. I think he'll be fine for strikeouts.
I mean, even the Reds, like you said, all the other teams, like the Reds hit left-handed pitching really well, and I'm sure they have a handful of games versus the Reds too. So like even the worst opponent in their division destroys lefties. I know Suarez is one of the best, has one of the best WOBAs in the league against left-handed pitching. So I mean, it's even when you're supposed to, it's surefire to win, it's not. So I don't. Hamels is not surefire for me at all.
Okay, so we're up on Moustakas. We're middle of the road on Escobar. We're both down on Hamels. I'm totally fine with that. Let's talk about some of the other deals that went down. Our producer today, Johnny Impemba, is sitting there wearing his Ian Kinsler jersey and touching himself completely inappropriately right now. They get their new second baseman here. They don't have to deal with Pedroia and his injuries. They don't have to deal with Brock Holt over there. I think it's obviously, to me, it's an increase in fantasy value for Kinsler. Where are you at?
Oh yeah, it's a no-brainer. I mean, he's been on fire. Just over his last 10 games, he has a 1,300 OPS. So he's really hitting his stride, and now he's going to be put in a spot. And not to say he wasn't in a great spot in a lineup with Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani and guys like that, but now he's in the premier lineup in baseball as of right now. Even if he hits sixth or seventh, every time he comes to bat, it's going to probably feel like there's 2 or 3 guys on. And they're just from a run producing standpoint, it's not something that Pedroia or Eduardo Nunez or Brock Holt can provide. Power, he provides way more power than any of those guys, and he has combined as many steals as Holt and Eduardo Nunez. And when we think of Nunez, we think of his helmet flying off while he's running the bases because he's so fast. So I mean, it's a Kinsler is going to be a really hot waiver wire ticket. He was already this week, but I mean, just how good how well he's played, plus the fact that he's going to the best lineup in baseball. He's in a great spot for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, agreed. We're going to see a lot of you know what? One more position player here. Adam Duvall. No longer with the Reds, so there's one less right-handed bat for Cole Hamels to have to deal with here. But so Duvall, he lands over where he's the Braves now here. So that's a big move for them. What's their outfield looking like? Are you content with Adam Duvall now that he moves down over there? He is coming away from a very strong hitter's park. I know SunTrust has played pretty well, but really to left-handed power hitters, not right-handed power hitters. Give me your thoughts on Duvall now that he's with Atlanta.
So I think he is almost becoming irrelevant in fantasy, and because there's a logjam in the Atlanta outfield. I mean, you have Acuna and you have Markakis and NCR already there. So where does Duvall fit? How many more games do they have with the AL to have him DH? Or, as he's essentially a fourth outfielder, and he has 60 RBIs on the year. So when he's playing every day, he's fine in category like RBI categories. He hits home runs. He's hit 30 home runs in back-to-back years. But what kind of league can we justify dropping someone who plays every day for a guy who could only play 2 days a week or pinch hit 5 times a week once per game? So I'm way down on Duvall for the remainder of the season. I think it's a great addition for the Braves from just a baseball perspective, because he's so good at producing runs. He's hitting 200 and he has 60 RBIs. Like those two, that's a very hard feat to accomplish. So I think from a baseball perspective, it's a great call. I'm just down on Duvall in fantasy leagues because we can't trust him unless there's an injury. Of course, unless there's an injury ahead of him, then But we saw it with Preston Tucker when Acuna was called up. Preston Tucker just lost his job. So I mean, I think Duvall is better than Preston Tucker, but I don't necessarily think that he's good enough to steal away any playing time from any of the aforementioned guys.
Yeah, I think the big problem here is that there could have been a chance that, geez, I got a fly zipping around here. What the hell? Hey, let me get like my chopsticks and do a little Miyagi. I think what the big problem is that we're dealing with most right now is the fact that there was a chance that Markakis could have gotten moved. Free agent at the end of the year, but I mean the dude's playing out of his mind right now. I think he's still hitting 320 or something stupid like that. I mean, he's been so below average for years and years and years. But yeah, the question is how do the Braves don't move him because you don't want them to screw around with team chemistry. Defensively, he's been great out there for them. So yeah, it does. It kills the value for Adam Duvall. It's definitely a negative impact for him. I'm not really looking at him too much again. Yeah, like you said, unless there's some sort of an injury that we can kind of bank on, it's a downward move for him over there. Let's talk a couple of bullpen situations here. Yesterday, we saw Roberto Osuna get traded to the Astros in exchange for Ken Giles. There are a couple of other players, 2 other players involved in there, inconsequential for fantasy purposes right now. But to me, this is like, I mean, we've got two closers basically being dealt for each other because Giles will go in and he'll close for Toronto. Because, I mean, Tapera, dude
Right.
sucks. Clippard sucks. So you got to figure that Giles all of a sudden becomes a closer there, and then it crushes the value of Hector Rondon, and it puts Roberto Osuna into that thing. Like people are like, oh well, he's got the hearing coming up and whatever. But I mean, are you telling me Jeffrey Lunau is dumb enough to take that chance and trade for a guy who's not going to be able to play for him over the next 2 months? I think that's garbage. I think that people. I think Osuna is a must add now, like a must add if he's even remotely available.
Yeah, in 100%. As long as he on August 4th when he comes back, he's in the ninth. He's 100%. He should be owned in every format. I mean, he was one of the best closers in baseball on a bad Blue Jays team. Now he's going to the defending World Series champions who have 67 wins on the year, who are going to be up or in every single game that they play. I mean, unless they're blowing teams out every game, which, is not baseball, I think it's a must own. And I think Giles is going to be one of those guys throughout his career that he's always on a mediocre team, but he's always consistent, 25, 30 saves. I think he has a lot of value in Toronto. Because what's the expectations for him as opposed to pitching in Houston? Your expectation is we need to hammer out the ninth, so we're going back to the World Series. In Toronto, it's all right. We're trying to catch. The Yankees and the Red Sox are ahead of us. We're not going to catch them, but we're trying to improve. We're trying to win games. And there's not that burden on Giles' shoulder. I think he's going to do much better in Toronto than he ever did in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. I mean, the Rogers Center is like a bandbox.
Right,
It's like
right.
Coors Field. It's like the Coors Field of Canada. But the thing is that yeah, maybe Giles just needs a bunch of low leverage, low pressure situations right now. Let him close. If he closes, great. If he doesn't, you're not. It's not killing you. You're not sitting here. You're not in a competitive spot for this year at all. So it doesn't hurt to kick the tires on him and maybe see if you do have a closer in the making. You want to get rid of Osuna. You don't want to deal with all the legal issues or any potential hassles there. Okay, fine. I get that. But yeah, to me, it's a decent move for him, and you got to take a shot on him if you're desperate for saves. If you're looking for saves, it's definitely a must because he's been dropped by virtually everybody. So I think this trade definitely puts him like heavy into the fab situation. If if I mean, when did that trade happen? Was it yesterday during the day?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got the full week now where everybody's going to start moving and shaking and trying to figure out what they're going to do with their fab budget. Um, we did lose a closer though in Keone Keela, who now goes to Pittsburgh in a deal there. Felipe Vasquez is still going to continue to close for the Pirates. He's been great all year. He's been a rock solid arm. I don't see them changing horses there. Keela comes in, solidifies the bullpen. What are we looking at in Texas now? Because you got Dykman, you got Alex Claudio, you got Leclerc, you got a couple of guys here who they could try out. Claudio has had the experience. Where do you think this lands?
I mean, we saw last night in a non-save situation, we saw Leclerc pitch the eighth and Dykman pitch the ninth. But I think that's going to get flipped come year's end. I think Leclerc is the guy. I mean, he's 24. You can groom him as the closer. He's been pretty dominant. 2.27 ERA, 56 strikeouts in 39 innings. That's pretty good. 15 holds on the year already. And, Dykman isn't a guy who comes in and overpowers you. I mean, he has over a strikeout per inning, but so does everyone out of the bullpen, right? Like Tyler Clippard, who throws an 85-mile-an-hour fastball, has a strikeout per inning this year. So, I mean, I think ultimately Leclerc is the guy to own for the immediate future and probably for the remainder of the season. I could see the other two. It might be a committee, which suck because committees, especially with where we are in the season, we want saves and we're losing a closer. So I think Leclerc is the guy to own, but I think if he's gone, you could take a shot on Dykman or Claudio, but don't drop someone that you're using every day for one of those two guys.
Okay, so who would you let's kind of rank these guys. Now let's just
Okay.
kind of figure it out. I mean, obviously, to me, Osuna is the top guy
Right.
over here. So then the question is, you got Giles, the Rangers situation. Who do you like more? Like, I mean, would you go Giles, Leclerc, Dykman as the order for you?
That exact order. That's the order I would go.
Okay.
I mean, I just think, although, like you talked about Toronto, the ballpark in Toronto, I mean, it's the same thing in Texas, like the summer months in Texas are brutal for pitching. Like, it's brutal for pitching. So, I mean, I think maybe they both struggle a bit, but I think Giles is maybe just more talented in general. I mean, he shows 100-mile-an-hour fastball every time he throws. So, I like Giles a little bit here, but that's the way I'd rank it: Giles, Leclerc, and Dykman.
And then Dykman. Okay, right. Listen, I can definitely get behind that as well. Keone Keela, drop him if you don't need. If you're not in a league that counts holds. It's you know what, to me it's a stupid category. And I'm just getting so frustrated with bullpens in general right now. Holds are even more arbitrary than frickin' wins are, and even more arbitrary than saves. So, all right. So we've got that move there. The other move that we're watching right now, or at least that was announced this morning here, Cardinals giving up Tommy Pham, sending him over to the Rays. Now, I find that to be, I guess, on the interesting side, only because, I mean, is St. Louis, are they done? Are we out of it? Are we looking at them? Yeah, I mean, they're 2 games above 500. They're even with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh doesn't seem to be selling, yet St. Louis is like, you know what, blind boy grunt Pham, we're done with him. It's kind of made its way, and it's worked its course. I'm gonna try and let me see some wild card standings here and how far back they are, but yeah, they're 4 games out of the wild card here in August. Explain this move to me. I don't really get it. Unless Pham sucks.
I mean, I don't think Pham has obviously been as great of a player as he was last year, because he was great for especially in fantasy. Like when he was great. I think he does present like a lot of tools, and I don't really get it from the Cardinals standpoint. Maybe they want to get Harrison Bader more time, or Tyler O'Neill, guys like that, who obviously now have increased value, tremendous value, because Pham plays every day. So from that aspect, I get like maybe they just like Bader better. He's younger, Pham's 30, and he's only been in the majors for a couple of years. Tyler O'Neill has a lot of power, younger guy again. But like you said, they're right in the middle of contention for a playoff spot. Maybe it's because their pitching staff is in such disarray. They don't think they can, hang with the guys in their division or in their league. But I think it's a great move for the Rays. They have a logjam in their outfield too, but like, Tommy Pham is a good player. He could right in the top of the order, right behind Kiermaier. I think he slots in very nicely on that team. And the Rays are a good little team who are, I guess they're 500. They're 10 games back, so that's not really in contention. But I mean, Pham could help them win some games going down the stretch. And I think he becomes a really good fantasy. He's hitting in the best of it. He's going to play a handful of games in the AL East, and every AL East ballpark is like a little league field. So I think that ups his value in Tampa Bay.
Okay. I mean, listen, I can get behind it. I like the Harrison Bader mention there. I definitely think that he's somebody that's worth picking up. If the Cardinals are definitely going to give him everyday at bats and they're going to get him worked into the lineup regularly, I think that's I mean, it's not a killer play,
right?
Kind of a mid-level if he's available to you, you might want to take a look at him and see. A couple of questions coming in over on YouTube here. Jeff Groton saying, welcome back from tour. Thank you very much, Jeff. Appreciate that. Tended Tadpole 2. Do you think Harper's getting traded? No. I think it was a whole lot of hype. I think it was a whole lot of just, trade deadline buzz. I think that the Nats are on this this teeter-totter right now, and I don't think they even know which way to go. I think that they're really just kind of trying to figure things out. They've got horses like Harper, Rendon. You've got Max Scherzer on the hill there. So I think they've got horses who can sort of compete. I don't really understand why they're not putting it together. Maybe they just need to fire Dave Martinez. I mean, I think that's, Dave Martinez has been dog crap this entire season. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Dusty Baker, but I mean, I think Baker could have done a lot more with this friggin' team than what Martinez is doing. It's very disappointing. Very disappointing. Question on Facebook here. Brian Silverman wants to know, do you think Shane Green gets traded? Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of relievers get dealt over the course of the next couple of hours here. Shane Green, why wouldn't they trade Shane Green? Is there really a reason? Do we look at Shane Green and say, well, here's a guy who's going to be the long-term closer for the Tigers? I don't really see that. I think they need to get some value there.
Yeah. The Tigers actually just traded Leonis Martin to the Cleveland Indians. That just happened right now.
Boom. Look at that. Leonis Martin. So there you go. Now the Tigers are going to start making their moves.
All their deals.
Yeah, I would definitely sit there and expect Shane Green to get dealt. I would look at a lot of these bottom-feeding teams, people. And I'm talking about, the Orioles, we've already seen them deal guys away. Apparently the Kevin Gossman and Michael Givens to the Pirates has been kind of squashed a little bit, but I could see the Orioles dealing more relievers, the Royals, the White Sox, the Tigers. I think that could happen. I could see the Texas Rangers moving guys like Dykeman and Claudio around as well. I think that that's definitely a possibility in the National League. I still think Kirby Yates could be dealt by the Padres. I think that Miami could end up moving not just Brad Ziegler, which apparently that deal has kind of fallen through, but it looks like Ziegler, possibly Steckenrider, Kyle Barraclough, all these names could be kind of bandied about and tossed around there. And then look at the Mets and the Reds. Those are another pair of teams that just need to start unloading as much as possible, I think.
Yep, completely agree. 100%.
What about Chris Archer? Where do you think he ends up? There's been a lot of talk about him. Listen, you're a Yankees fan, dude. You've seen what's going on here. Where's Archer going to end up?
I mean, I would love more than anything for him to end up in New York. And I know it's going to cost a lot. I saw a tweet that said, "Oh, the Yankees should offer Gleyber Torres for Chris Archer," and that was from like a verified Twitter account. I don't remember who it was, but I threw up a little bit in my mouth. I don't see Archer coming to the Yankees. I think the Yankees have enough to get him, but I think the Rays are offering a little too much. And ultimately, I think he might just stand put. I think the Rays are offering a pretty hefty price for a guy who's really been only good at home, which is weird enough to say. He's always been good at home, but he's always been a little shaky on the road. I think he has all the talent in the world, but I think he just stays put. I think he passes the trade deadline. 4 p.m. goes by, and I think he stays in Tampa.
Okay. Couple more questions on Facebook. Adam Lorber wants to know if you think the Giants, buyers or sellers?
The Giants are going to be sellers. I mean, they might just be lukewarm on everything. I mean, they have some pieces like Derek Holland, who's been surprisingly good recently. They could sell. They could trade him. So they do have a few pieces. Andrew McCutchen, but again, just reports just came out recently that the Yankees, who were apparently all in on McCutchen, are now have soft interest in him. So, I mean, his market is probably So I think that they're obviously going to try to field deals, but I don't know what they can get for these players.
All right, another team here that looks like could be big time sellers. They've already dealt Escobar is the Twins. Brian Dozier's been probably one of the hottest names out there. Now I know that Dozier was linked a lot more with the Red Sox as a possibility. They go the cheaper route, the Kinsler route here. What about Dozier? I mean, could we see a decent landing spot for him? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, he's just like you said. It's gonna be costly, and Kinsler was definitely, I think, probably the better decision overall. I mean, he's been better lately. Dozier's been having a way worse season than he's had in years past. He's not hitting lefties like we were normally accustomed to seeing him hit. So yeah, Dozier can get moved, and I think the Twins would be very smart to do so because they're clearly, in a bad spot, way worse than they were last year. Buxton's been a disaster all year. Sano's been a disaster all year. They already moved arguably their best player. Their starting shortstop from last year was suspended for PEDs. So they're in a bad spot, and I think getting Dozier off their books would be a really, really good idea. And I think they almost need to do it at this point.
Okay, but really, I mean, it's about finding the right trade partner. Now, you look at the standings for even just the wild card in the American League, and it's like it's a three-team race. I mean, it's the Yankees, the Mariners, and the Oakland A's. The Angels are 9.5 games out of that wild card spot right now, and then from Tampa to every other team in the AL, it's double-digit games right there. So looking for a home for Dozier here. The Angels certainly aren't buying because they just sold Kinsler. The A's just brought up Franklin Barreto. They still have they still have Jed Lowry over there. They still have their pieces. So I don't necessarily know if they're going to do it. The Mariners certainly aren't a team. So you got to look to the National League. Milwaukee just took care of their second base situation by moving Travis Shaw over there, picking up Moustakas. The Diamondbacks, they added Eduardo Escobar, so they've got Ketel Marte, Escobar, Chris Owings, and Nick Ahmed to handle the middle infield. So they're out. Braves have Ozzy Albies. They're certainly not going to be dealing for Dozier, looking for, to replace Albies. The Rockies, they just bring up Garrett Hampson for while LeMahieu is out. Now, this could be an interesting situation here. If LeMahieu is possibly out longer, if Hampson doesn't work, could the Rockies end up being a possible destination? I think that's, out of all the teams that we've named so far, I think the Rockies, and then I'm like the Pirates maybe because they only have Josh Harrison at second, and the Cardinals. The Cardinals are sitting there. I mean, that's going to be the interesting thing. Do you move Tommy Pham, but then you bring in Brian Dozier? Because let's face it, we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, Colton Wong has been definitely a disappointment here. Do you move Paul DeYoung over to third and Colton Wong to short? There's probably not. But you could try and fit Dozier in at some point over there on that squad too.
I mean, I think those three make a lot of sense. But if you went to St. Louis, I don't think Colton Wong really even fits the picture anymore. I think Dozier would just take over for Colton Wong, and we wouldn't need to worry about Colton Wong anymore. He's been very underwhelming anyways, and he's lost playing time to Jed Jerko. So that says that kind of says it all.
Jerko sucks at defense. Yeah. I mean, he's really freaking bad at defense. So, where's my St. Louis depth chart here? Let me go to FantasyAlarm.com and look for my St. Louis depth chart. I mean, with Jose Martinez banged up at first, and them using Matt Carpenter there. If you can get away with Matt Carpenter at third, and you'll have Paul DeYoung at short, then yes, then it makes sense that all of a sudden you end up bringing in a guy like Brian Dozier. But again, you also have to kind of monitor what happens at first base. I mean, that's not interesting. Oh, Tyler O'Neill just got brought up.
Mm.
Right? Nothing like something to eat into your Harrison
Yeah,
Bader
yeah.
value there, right?
Yep. Yep.
All right. Well, guys, we got a lot of stuff to cover here throughout the day. Greg Jewett's going to be doing a post on fantasyalarm.com at some point late in the day after the trade deadline. He's going to help wrap things up and kind of give you a couple of things. We're going to stay on top of these news reports and rumors throughout the time. Keep checking the fantasyalarm.com homepage. We'll have announcements in that top banner as well. We can discuss things in the chat over there. We can talk. You can talk personally to me, to James, John, and Pemba. We're all going to be around here for the deadline. And then today at 4 p.m. Eastern, Jim Bowden and I on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. Jim's going to have all sorts of breaking news. We're going to have at least, the deadline's at 4. So by the time the show starts, we're supposed to have all the deals in. But keep in mind, deadline deals start to trickle in for a little bit afterwards. So we're going to be on top of everything you could possibly want, giving you the fantasy value, the breakdown of it all. So I don't know, man. Any other guys you want to talk about here, James, that you think we need to address? I see Gio Gonzalez being courted by the Brewers now all of a sudden. I don't know.
I mean, the Yankees picked up a future Hall of Famer in Lance Lynn yesterday. But other than that, not there's not much to go. Yeah,
what is that? What does that do for the Yankees? I mean, really, legitimately, it gives them depth at the starting pitcher position here. But I mean, what? Maybe it allows them to like skip a start for Severino here and there towards the tail end of the season. Severino, Tanaka, Happ, I don't know, Sonny Gray, CC Sabathia.
I mean, it's a good point. It's a good point. Like, the way that Sevy's been pitching, it's not the same guy. It could be a type of 6-man rotation. Even CC, given CC, who's, 37, giving him, an extra day, just giving all these guys, keeping them fresh as possible, at least heading into playoffs. There's obviously no fantasy ramifications because Lance Lynn hasn't been fantasy relevant all year, but yeah.
Right, look at you censoring yourself. Go ahead, dude. Say it. It's a live stream. It's okay. There's no FCC regulations here. You want to say he sucks balls? Go ahead. He sucks balls. I know. It's been like an absolute nightmare all season long here. Ugh. I hate him. All right. So there you go, guys. If there are no more questions, and it doesn't look like there are, James and I, we're going to get out of here. We got a ton of work to do. I got to deal with the trade deadline, prep for the show. James has stuff to write, prep for everything else. But I'll tell you this, guys. You ready for this one? For you DFS junkies out there, starting today, 6 p.m. Eastern. Well, maybe it'll go like 6:05. All right, me, James, and John and Pemba, we're going to be kind of rotating in and out from 6 o'clock to 6:30, possibly 7, just depending on how many questions there are. We're going to do a live stream for you guys for DFS right before lineup lock. You can get all your questions in. And Pemba's doing the playbook today. Grande's on the hitting coach. I think, Grande, are you on the hitting coach today? Where are you?
Pitching.
Oh, you're on the pitching coach today. Who's your favorite pitcher tonight so far?
You have to wait and see the pitching coach.
Ah, there you go. So Grande's going to do the pitching coach, and Pemba's on the playbook. We'll be back here doing a live stream today, just right around 6 p.m. Eastern, as soon as I'm done with the show on Sirius, and we're going to help you guys for the half hour to the hour right leading up to lineup lock. And we're going to be doing that Monday through Friday moving forward here. So buckle up, get ready. That's going to do it for us for right here, right now on the MLB live stream. Enjoy the trade deadline. May all your players end up in positive situations, unless you're playing against me. Then I hope all your players suck. For James Grande, I'm Howard Bender. This has been Fantasy Alarm. We'll catch you guys next time.